Millionaire dad discovers his lost child with a stranger. What she whispered will amaze you. Jack Lawson stood in the opulence of his mansion, gazing out at the manicured gardens that sprawled like a canvas of success. The glint of riches surrounded him. Luxury cars lined his driveway and chandeliers sparkled overhead. Yet underneath his polished exterior lay a gnawing emptiness. The wealth that had once fueled his ambitions now felt like chains, binding him to a past he couldn't escape. His mind raced, not with strategic business moves, but with haunting memories of his daughter, Lily. In the ruthless aftermath of his divorce, she had slipped away, swallowed by a system he had been too blind to acknowledge. Guilt wrapped around him like a fog, and tonight, as he prepared for a charity gala, that fog thickened. The event was meant to showcase his lavish lifestyle, but inside, Jack felt anything but dazzling. Every handshake in the boardroom had once been a source of pride. Now they were hollow symbols of his failure as a father. Should he have fought harder? Questions spun through his mind relentlessly, and all his accomplishments paled against the haunting question of what if. As he entered the gala, glittering lights and laughter echoed around him, yet his heart pounded in a different rhythm. Each encounter only served to remind him of what was missing. Minutes turned into hours, and just as he began to lose himself in the crowd, he noticed a little girl. Her bright smile shone through the sea of adults, but more striking was the way she reminded him of Lily. He approached cautiously, intrigued by the energy radiating from her small frame. "Hi there," he said, kneeling to meet her curious eyes. "What's your name?" "Izzy," she replied, giggling. "Who are you?" "Jack." He paused, heart racing. "Do you like this party?" Her laughter faded and a seriousness emerged. "It's for the kids, right? The ones without homes?" Each word pierced him with renewed guilt. Before he could respond, she added, "I've got an Aunt Avery. She says I might get a home soon." Jack's heart skipped, spinning his thoughts into a vortex of hope and despair. Isabel, an innocent child, held up a mirror reflecting his greatest loss. As he learned more about her, Jack discovered the unthinkable. Isabel was the niece of his late ex-wife. The chasm between them stretched wider. If only he had known. "I wish I could have my aunt's family back," Isabel whispered, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her bravado. Jack's heart sank, recognizing echoes of Lily's feelings, the same yearning for family. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A rush of emotions engulfed him. Determination, desperation, and most of all, fear. Fear of facing the lengths he would need to go to find Lily. The rug of wretched guilt pulled tighter beneath him as he realized he must now grapple with the irrevocable truth. She, too, had become a statistic in a system he had pretended didn't exist. Could he take action? Would he have the strength? His privilege and success could help him unravel the layers of bureaucracy. Yet, as Isabel looked at him with innocent hope, Jack felt the weight of his previous life choices pressing down. In that suspenseful moment, he felt a flicker of hope mingle with dread. The comfort of wealth turned to uncertainty. The stakes had never been higher, the risk of loss looming greater. As Isabel brushed her hair back and spoke wistfully about her aunt, Jack realized the bold new path ahead was fraught with peril and promise. Would the universe allow him the grace to reclaim what was lost, or had he been too late? The night air hung heavy with an urgency that clawed at Jack's insides. He glanced down at Isabel, who was now animatedly chatting about her favorite games, her youthful exuberance starkly contrasting Jack's somber introspection. Every laugh from her seemed to spiral into his mind, colliding with the memories of a giggling Lily. The echo of her voice was a reminder of the innocence he had lost, just as Isabel had lost so much. "Izzy," he interrupted, needing to ground himself in this moment, "tell me about your Aunt Avery. What's she like?" Her eyes sparkled. "She makes the best cookies, and she tells the coolest stories." Jack felt a pang of longing for the familial warmth that had slipped from his grasp. He could practically smell the metaphorical cookies, sense from another life that promised comfort. Could he be the kind of dad who made cookies? The thought poked at the hollow space inside him. "That's wonderful," he said, hoping to steer the momentum away from the circulating guilt. "What will you do when you have a home?" "Have a garden and a swing." Isabel bounced on her feet, her enthusiasm infectious yet heart-wrenching. The image she conjured clashed violently with Jack's current reality. His sprawling property felt like a prison brimming with shadow, not sanctuary. The realization cut deep. He had created a life so far removed from familial bliss, all in the name of success. As the gala continued around him, Jack's mind raced. He needed a plan. The philanthropic engagements he had haphazardly organized felt meaningless. Out there in the heart of the city, children like Isabel were waiting for adults to take responsibility. He'd never truly considered how he could bridge the chasm between wealth and the invisible struggles of—
So, salmon does have iron in it, but it's not a lot. He exited the event, pulling out his phone. Meetings and collaborations filled his calendar, but now he saw them through a different lens. He could rally support, leverage connections. This could transform into a movement, a real chance to make a change. "Excuse me, Jack." A familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. It was Avery, Isabel's aunt. She approached, her face a mosaic of confusion and concern. "I've been looking for Izzy. I wasn't sure if you'd seen her." Jack turned, steadying himself. Avery held an air of strength, laced with vulnerability, her daughterly instinct palpable. "We were just talking," he said, forcing a casualness he didn't feel, attempting to mask his spiraling guilt. "She's excited about her future." Avery's eyes softened, yet there was a lingering mistrust. "You have a way with kids," she observed. "But are you sure you're ready for that responsibility? It seems you're more absorbed in your own world." Her words sliced through him like a whip. He opened his mouth to retort, then paused. "I've been thinking," he began slowly. "I want to help children like her, like Lily." He faltered. "I've been lost for too long, Avery. I can't change the past, but I can try to make a better future." Avery studied him intently, as if weighing unseen scales of judgment against his sincerity. "Talk is cheap, Jack." Her voice held a steady challenge. "What are you willing to do?" Jack didn't have a straightforward answer. The room around him blurred, the celebratory voices fading. In that moment, clarity struck. He would not only seek Lily, but also build something tangible for children caught in the crossfire of circumstance. He felt a flicker of determination tense within him. A waiting beast stirred. But where would he even start? As his mind raced with possibilities, he couldn't shake off the shadow of self-doubt. In his pursuit of redemption, would he merely become another wealthy man throwing money at a problem he couldn't understand? The stakes were rising, and the path ahead forked into unknown territories. Jack looked at Avery, desperation creeping into his resolve. "What's your story? What do you need?" The moment hung, thick with tension. He felt the pull toward redemption, but also the weight of the unknown. This was only the beginning. Would he fight to uncover the truth, or fade back into the shadows of his past mistakes? This moment would define him. As she spoke, Jack deciphered glimpses of a new purpose, bracing himself to confront the truths of the past that would compel him to face the ultimate discovery. Was he prepared to reconcile the conflicting parts of his identity? Jack shifted his weight as he listened intently to Avery. Her words painted a stark picture of challenges that people like Isabel faced. Poverty, neglect, dreams faded into the background noise of survival. Each revelation cut into Jack's protective shell, revealing a rawness he had long buried under layers of success and isolation. "I'm trying to keep Isabel's hope alive."
Avery continued, her voice steady but tinged with fatigue. "It's not easy without a stable home and all the things I wish I could provide for her. I work 2 jobs just to make ends meet. I want to inspire her, but sometimes—" Her voice faltered as she glanced away, the unspoken weight of despair hanging in the air. "Sometimes it feels hopeless." Jack felt the urgency of her dilemma seep into his skin. His previous unexamined commitments, the endless meetings and networking events, suddenly felt trivial. He had built his life around the artificial walls of wealth, consumed by ambition without understanding the real implications behind it. Failure had painted a perfect illusion that self-worth was intrinsically tied to financial success. "I could help," Jack blurted out, the words fighting their way through the fear that clutched at him. We can work together to create something impactful, something real." The tremor in his voice betrayed his uncertainty, even as a flicker of purpose ignited within him. Avery's expression shifted, a mix of skepticism and cautious curiosity. "And how do you plan to do that? You've lived a life so disconnected from these struggles. What makes you think you can make a meaningful impact?" It was a valid question, one that pricked at his heart and ego. Jack had once commanded boardrooms and spearheaded billion-dollar projects, expecting his presence alone would command respect and results. But here, with Avery, wielding influence felt inadequate. "I don't want to just throw money at the problems," Jack responded, searching for the right words. "I want to understand what these kids go through, to really know what they need. I think I still need to face my own past to do it." For the first time, he reflected on the disassociative lifestyle he had led. His success had often come at the cost of emotional connection, a legacy of denial rather than genuine achievement. Avery nodded slowly, contemplating his proposition. "It's not easy, Jack. This is about more than just charity. If you choose to step into this world, you can't wear blinders. You will expose yourself to things that will test your very foundations." He thought of Isabel's laughter, of Lily's fleeting presence deep within his memories. They were all fighting hard battles, and he was ready to enlist. "I understand. I want to confront that. For them, for me. But I need someone who knows this world, the reality of it, someone to show me the way." Avery's eyes softened a fraction. "If you're serious, your journey begins here, not in some lofty boardroom, but on the streets. Volunteer at shelters, engage with the children, and hear their stories. You might find it's not what you envision." Each step of her guidance felt daunting, yet exhilarating. The fire within him surged. He could no longer let the tides of guilt dictate his journey. "Okay," Jack replied, his voice steeling with newfound resolve. "Let's do it. Let me in." As they exchanged ideas, a sense of direction began to materialize, however fragile. Jack could feel pieces of himself cracking open, allowing space for uncomfortable growth he never anticipated. The urgency no longer felt suffocating, but rather a call to action. Yet a deeper fear lurked beneath his burgeoning excitement. Could he truly withstand the impact of this reality? Later that night, Jack sat alone in his empty, sterile house. The silence was deafening, and every wall echoed back moments of his solitary triumphs. What had he traded for success? The weight of realization crashed heavily on him, and fear intertwined with anticipation. As he stared into the darkness, Jack felt the horizon of his new life simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. The pull to action surged again, but it was now coupled with the dread of failure. Would he be able to navigate this unfamiliar terrain, or would he retreat back into the comfort of his fortress? The tentative first steps had been taken, but the deeper plunge into vulnerability still loomed ahead. And as doubt began to weave its way back into his thoughts, a signal of internal conflict gearing up to clash, Jack remembered Isabel's buoyant spirit. There was no turning back. A storm was coming. What would it reveal about him? And more pressingly, what would he uncover in confronting the shadows of his past? The next decision loomed ahead, one that could change everything. The following morning, Jack awoke with a sense of urgency threading through his veins. The crisp air of autumn seeped through the slightly ajar window, carrying with it the faint sounds of the city coming to life. He clumsily extinguished the rewinding thoughts of last night's turmoil. The weight of uncertainty still hung over him, like a storm cloud ready to break. As he walked to the bathroom, his reflection in the mirror looked foreign. The successful businessman staring back seems to belong to another life, a life he now questioned. He splashed cold water on his face, hoping to shake the remnants of his self-doubt, but the reflection remained unsettling. The skin was taut, the eyes alert, yet something deeper stirred, the presence of a long-dormant sense of empathy awakening. Jack's mind wandered to Isabel and Avery, igniting a flicker of determination. He needed to shed the layers he had so carefully constructed around himself. To do so, he would have to redefine his purpose. On his way to the shelter, Jack confronted every unfavorable thought spiraling inside him. What if he didn't measure up? What if he couldn't relate at all? But with each question, he also felt the burgeoning realization that the journey itself held answers. He drew in a deep breath, letting out a silent prayer for strength as he arrived. The shelter was bustling with activity upon his entrance. Children's laughter bounced off the walls as volunteers served breakfast. Jack stood paralyzed for a moment, observing the chaos. It was overwhelming. The obvious lack of resources fought against children's spirited resilience. He had never envisioned anything like this. The energy, both vibrant and daunting. Avery spotted him and approached, her smile tinged with surprise. "You made it! Ready to dive in?" He nodded, albeit with hesitant resolve. Jack grappled with the reality that this warped world demanded more than mere presence. It demanded his vulnerability. "Let's start with breakfast," she suggested. "Afterward, we will have some building activities with the kids. They need structured playtime." Avery's focus was practical, intended to keep Jack engaged and grounded. He joined the line at the serving station, the scent of pancakes filling the air. As he ladled food onto plastic trays, he noticed a girl, perhaps 6 years old, shyly eyeing the food from the side. She too seemed lost in confusion amongst the noise. "What's your name?" Jack asked, crouching to her eye level. "Sarah," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you hungry, Sarah?" he prodded gently. She nodded, but remained still, the weight of hesitation heavy on her tiny shoulders. It occurred to Jack that this moment wasn't just about serving food. It was about breaking down barriers, forging connections. "Would you like to help me serve?" Jack offered, hoping to alleviate her apprehension. She hesitated, then grinned, her trepidation eclipsed by curiosity. Together they distributed pancakes, with Jack offering encouragement as she gained confidence. Her infectious laughter made the mask of his own anxiety slip. This small interaction sparked something within him. Perhaps it was the realization that these moments of connection granted meaning beyond monetary success. Throughout the morning, as Jack engaged with other children, he noticed stories emerging in their stares, their laughter, and even their silences. Each interaction unpeeled a layer of his emotional detachment and brought forth an understanding he had long denied. By noon, as the din began to quiet, Jack felt a shift within himself. This was not just an exercise in charity, it was a reopening of his heart. Yet, lurking beneath that revelation was the sinking awareness that embracing vulnerability also meant possible exposure to pain. He couldn't ignore that fear. Avery tapped his shoulder, jolting him from his reverie. "Great work today. You connected with them." I think I'm only beginning to understand," he replied, the conviction in his voice surprising even himself. "What's next for you?" she asked, sensing a deeper wound within him. Jack's breath hitched in his throat. This wasn't just about helping others. It was about facing himself, the legacy he carried, and acknowledging the shadows of his past that had always lingered at the edges of his success. "I have to confront my past," he answered, uncertainty threading through his resolve. But what exactly did that entail? How much of his exterior life was built on a foundation rather than a connection? With hurdles still ahead, Jack felt a daunting weight rest on his shoulders, knowing the personal truths he had yet to unearth. As he said goodbye to the children, Sarah waved timidly, and in that moment he felt the raw potential of change. This journey would not only challenge the status quo of his life, but also push him into the depths of his own unresolved issues. The next day would bring more stories, more questions, more revelations. Would Jack be ready to confront them, or would fear once again block his path? The morning sun streamed into Jack's apartment, illuminating the cluttered desk where he'd long parked the remnants of his corporate life. Piles of paperwork loomed over him like the ghosts of opportunities and choices unmade. He couldn't remember the last time he felt such disarray. Today, however, felt different. It wasn't just the usual rush for a meeting that propelled him, but an urgent need to untangle himself from the binds of his professional past. Jack brewed a strong cup of coffee, his mind racing with the possibilities of change. He had the faint sense that digging deeper into his own history might yield more than just clarity. Confronting old decisions meant embracing the shadows he'd long avoided, and it frightened him. Would he reconnect with the father he'd lost to ambition? Would he finally acknowledge the charity case he had turned his family into? He grabbed a notepad, deciding that he would outline the questions gnawing at him. First, he wrote, "What does it mean to be vulnerable?" He paused, chewing on the end of his pen, contemplating how vulnerability had always been a trait he equated with weakness. Yet here he was, recognizing it as the first step toward authenticity. With a few scribbles, he moved to a more resolute query. What unresolved issues have I left behind? Immediately, names flashed through his mind. Isabel, his estranged parents, and a younger Jack who had often wished he could escape the suffocating expectations of success. What would they say if he decided to reconnect? Reeling from this cavalcade of thoughts, Jack realized he couldn't stall his journey. It was time to visit his parents' neighborhood, a place he had stayed away from for too long. With a surge of breath, a mix of anticipation and dread rushed through him, and he decided to embrace whatever discomfort awaited. The drive to his childhood home felt surreal, like passing through a dream where every corner held memories. Growing up in that neighborhood had shaped him, for better or worse. The houses seemed smaller now, almost shabby, yet they evoked a sense of familiarity he had almost forgotten. Pulling up to the familiar white fence, Jack hesitated, his heartbeat a drumming echo in his ears. Doubt began to churn. What if they were disappointed in him? What if agony washed over them as they recognized the distance he'd put between them? But then he thought about Sarah's laughter echoing in his mind, the joy she found in simple connections. He had to push through this fog of fear. With a deep breath, he approached the door, his knuckles hovering apprehensively above the wood. His hand trembled as he knocked. A moment stretched into eternity before he heard footsteps shuffling from inside. "Jack, is that you?" The voice of his mother, filled with tentative hope, shot straight through the sharpest of his anxieties. The door cracked open, and that warmth, once a comfort, now felt like a challenge. Instinctively, he felt like a little boy caught trespassing in an adult world. "Mom," he managed, his voice unexpectedly thick. Tears welled up in her eyes, and just like that, the barrier he had erected seemed to fade. But a moment of joy quickly turned to anxiety as one deep thought invaded his mind. Was he prepared to confront the distance that had grown between them? As they embraced, Jack inhaled deeply, feeling something unlock within him. Maybe this moment could open a door to the conversations he'd avoided for years. But fear still wrapped its tendrils around his heart. Would he still be able to articulate what he needed to say when confronted with the past?
Jack's instincts flared again, sensing the weight of unspoken words. He had already faced his own vulnerabilities. Would he now allow the truth about their history to surface? The confrontation he both awaited and feared loomed ever closer. There was no turning back now. The door to the past lay wide open, and Jack was ready to step through. Would this be the moment that unshackled him, or a plunge into chaos? In the recesses of his mind, the sound of children's laughter reverberated once more, spurring him forward. The real journey, where his transformation could truly begin, was just starting. Would he finally find the courage to redefine not just who he was, but also who he could become? Embracing his mother tightly, Jack felt the years of absence dissipate into the warm air surrounding them. Yet, even as he reveled in the comfort of her embrace, the suppressed emotions within him lashed out, each memory morphing from tender warmth to piercing reminders of neglect and disconnect. As they pulled apart, her eyes glistened with unshed tears, a painful cue that they both had long been holding on to too much. "Come in, Jack," she said, her voice quivering slightly, opening the door wider and ushering him into the familiar yet foreign landscape of his childhood home. The interior felt unchanged, the floral prints on the couch, the faint scent of cedar, and that old ticking clock in the corner. But for Jack, each detail was a stark reminder of the life he had left behind when he pursued his relentless chase for success. He could hardly recall the last time he sat on this couch, sharing laughter or fears. Was every family gathering overshadowed by his own ambitions? "Would you like some tea?" His mother's fragility brought him back to the moment. "Maybe later, Mom." His voice fell short of the buoyancy he'd once shown, each word a struggle against the tidal wave of regret crashing inside him. "I think I need to talk first." They settled into the living room, the silence stretching between them, laden with unspooled threads of unasked questions. Jack looked down, wondering how to begin unraveling the tight-knit fabric of unspoken words. "Jack, I've missed you," she spoke softly, her tone almost an apology. "When you moved away," he interrupted. "It wasn't just moving away. I turned my back on everything. On you, on Dad, on us." The edges of his voice wavered, and he winced at the admission. "I thought you were doing well," she said, her brows furrowing. "You were so ambitious." "Ambitious?" Jack laughed, a sound devoid of humor. "It was a cover, Mom, a distraction. It kept me too busy to realize how alone I was. I thought I was building a future, but I lost my way." Her eyes widened, flickering between hurt and understanding. "You could have talked to me." "I didn't know how," Jack admitted, his heart racing as he wrestled with the burgeoning truth. "I thought I was supposed to be strong. I thought strength meant avoiding vulnerability." Understanding dawned in her expression. "Strength can be about honesty, Jack. Being open about how you feel. It's okay to be scared." Perhaps it was in that moment of shared vulnerability that Jack felt the pulse of a shift within him. The act of expressing his self-doubt and fear felt cathartic, like helping to unearth the roots of his discontent. Conversations about his past wouldn't erase the guilt, but they could lay the foundation for a future built on forgiveness, not just for his parents, but for himself. "What if we start small?" he ventured, a flicker of determination igniting inside. "We talk about our expectations. The wound from years of silence doesn't heal overnight, but it's a start." His mother nodded, and for the first time in years, Jack felt the stirring of hope, both fragile and buoyant. "Where do I even begin?" "Begin wherever feels right," she encouraged. "Every story has a beginning." The dialogue unfolded, as Jack braved the myriad questions he had long shunned. Each exchange pulled him closer to discovering the man he was supposed to be, rather than the one he had constructed in avoidance. As sunlight poured through the parkside window, he noticed his mother visibly relaxing, engaged, as they forged connections through shared reflections. But as the conversation deepened,
Jack felt another stir rising deep within him, one that begged to confront the real questions haunting his youth. Would acknowledgement be enough? Were there pieces of his identity he needed to reclaim from the past? Or was he facing the fear of further transformation? His throat tightened with anticipation, a deeper truth looming in the undercurrents of their exchange. What remained unspoken still hovered, waiting to be confronted. It became clear this was only the beginning, urging him to peel back layers that had shielded him for too long. And as if conjuring those very thoughts, Jack heard a faint noise outside, a child's laughter weaving through his memories. Clarity washed over him. What if the answers he sought required more than just reconnection? Perhaps he needed to explore the untouched corners of his identity, reclaim those fragments of joy he thought were lost forever. So, as Jack turned back to his mother, he felt the whisper of destiny. A new journey awaited him, one that would take him beyond the familial ties and towards a deeper revelation of self. What was still left to uncover? Would the laughter of children symbolize a chance for rebirth, for finding joy amidst the chaos? Jack's mind raced, caught between the gravity of his renewed connection with his mother and the heaviness of his own unresolved past. A child's laughter wafted through the window, startling him with its innocence. He hadn't realized until that moment how much he missed the simple joys that had once glittered brightly in his youth. It was a stark contrast to the relentless pressure and ambition defining his adult life. His gaze turned back to his mother, still poised on the edge of vulnerability, as if she were waiting for him to leap into that chasm of honesty. "What do you want me to say, Mom?" Jack challenged himself, even as a part of him yearned for clarity. "What if I don't know how to articulate all this pain? I avoid it like the plague. I don't even know where to start." "Start with the little things," she suggested, her soft smile encouraging. "What do you feel when you think of us, of your childhood?" Dread seeped through Jack's mind, threatening to freeze him. "It feels distant and heavy, like a weight I can no longer carry." He frowned, the truth pounding against his chest like a drum. "But I don't want it to be that way anymore. I've spent years blinded by ambition, ignoring what's most important in life." His mother watched him intently. "What if you allowed yourself to feel those memories in a different way? What if you returned to the past, even if only for a moment? Let those memories breathe instead of stifling them." As her words sank in, Jack felt an unexpected surge of rebellion rise within him, against the complacency that had held him hostage for years. Perhaps it was time to step outside the cage he had built around himself. He didn't have to wear the mask of success alone anymore. He could share the burden with her. "But what if diving into those memories only brings more pain?" he questioned, his voice trembling at the thought. "Pain is part of healing, and healing is part of moving forward," she replied. "You can think of it as reclaiming pieces of yourself that you thought you lost." Pondering her answer, Jack considered the steps ahead. What could reclaiming those lost pieces mean? Would addressing the raw emotions lead him closer to understanding his current self? How could he explore the laughter of that child outside, bridging the gap to the joyful moments of his own past? As they continued to talk, Jack's resolve solidified. Perhaps he could harness this moment for something greater. What if uncovering the hidden corners of his identity sparked not just personal growth, but transformed his professional life as well? Struggling with this exhilarating yet terrifying thought, he finally voiced it. "What if I searched for the joy I once knew and allowed that to reshape my ambition? What if I used my past as a guide instead of a weight?" His mother's face brightened, realizing the depth of his revelation. "That's the spirit of transformation, Jack. You can take those joyful experiences and merge them with who you are now. It's not about disregarding your past, it's about embracing it." But as he absorbed these ideas, an unsettling sensation clawed at him. He couldn't shake the feeling that while he was ready to reconnect with his past, it also meant confronting his failures head-on. What would that confrontation reveal about his motivations, his fears, and his true self? Pushing those dark thoughts aside, he knew that a commitment to self-exploration was essential. Could he dare to face potential embarrassment, perhaps even ridicule, in pursuit of discovering who he really was underneath the ambition-laden mask? Feeling the thrill of uncertainty mix with determination, Jack made a vow. Not just to explore what it meant to rediscover joy, but to confront the suppressed guilt of his decisions. "Mom," he began cautiously, "I think I'm ready to start this journey, but I need your help. Can you guide me through those unspoken moments? Will you help me reclaim the boy I once was?" As she nodded and grasped his hand tightly, the lingering child's laughter echoed through their hearts, symbolizing not just his past, but the possibility of a holistic future. Jack felt the weight of his decision intensify, the stakes rising higher than ever. Would he have the strength to face what lay ahead, or would it render him powerless once more? The clock on the wall ticked, and Jack braced for the revelations waiting to unfold. The journey had only just begun, but he sensed already that it would demand everything from him, and maybe more. What truths lay beyond those closed doors of his memory, just waiting for him to muster the courage to knock? The air in the living room was thick with anticipation as Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself against the emotional tide swelling within him. His mother's nod felt like an anchor, grounding him against the waves of uncertainty that plagued his mind. They had made a pact, a silent agreement that they would venture deeper into the maze of his childhood, and, in doing so, dismantle the barriers that had long kept him isolated. "Where should we start?" he asked, his voice steadier than he felt. The starkness of the question reverberated through the room, drawing an invisible map of potential paths to rediscovery. "Let's talk about your happiest memory," she responded, leaning in. Slightly, her eyes softening. "What comes to mind when you think of joy?" The question pierced through Jack's defenses, and for a brief moment his mind raced, grappling with images from a distant past. But through the fog, one memory emerged, vivid and unyielding: his 8th birthday party at the park. Friends, balloons, laughter, and the overwhelming sense of security his mother had provided. The overwhelming brightness of that day felt like a glaring contrast to the grayness of what had followed in the years to come. "I remember the cake," he said slowly, finding solace in the simplicity of it. "It had this bright blue frosting that stained my lips. I felt invincible, surrounded by my friends, playing games. It was perfect." As he spoke, something unusual transpired within him. The memories, once hazy and glum, radiated warmth. He began to understand his mother's analogy of reclaiming. Every word he articulated pulled at the threads of nostalgia, weaving a pattern of reinforcement around his heart. "And how did that day make you feel?" she prompted gently. "I was loved. I think I felt different then, unconditional acceptance." The admission hung in the air, electric and raw. Jack felt a knot in his chest start to loosen. That child, laughing and free, was a version of himself he had long buried beneath layers of ambition, failure, and pressure. It stung to accept that he had let those years of success eclipse the fundamental need for connection and joy. Call it what it was, a self-imposed exile from his own life. His mother's expression morphed into empathy, and Jack could feel her pride mingling with an understanding that this conversation was monumental. "Why have you locked away those feelings, Jack?" she queried, her voice unwavering but filled with concern. He hesitated, grappling with the weight of her question. "I thought I had to prioritize success. My career, ambition, they pushed everything else aside. I thought if I just focused hard enough, everything would fall into place. But at what cost? She asked, her gaze penetrating, illuminating the shadows lurking in his heart. You lost sight of the joy that once defined you. Not everything is about accomplishments, Jack. Remember, you're more than your job title. Her words stirred something within him, a dissonance that he had tried so ardently to ignore. The pressure to achieve had morphed into a silent prison, and now, in the harsh light of the truth, he felt on the cusp of awareness. He was more than the success he had chased. He was a son, a man worthy of joy. As he looked into her eyes, he realized the space between his ambitions and his emotions was not an insurmountable chasm. Instead, it was a bridge waiting to be crossed. What if I began to let those memories guide the way I approach my work? What if I pursued passion instead of profit? The thought ignited a spark of excitement, but it was also deeply daunting. He would have to confront his fears of inadequacy, face the critical eye of those who only valued metrics over meaning. Yet another realization followed closely. Being rooted in joy wouldn't make him weak, it would make him stronger. Mom, maybe finding that balance could redefine my career, make it less of a grind and more of a calling, he said, the tremor of uncertainty still apparent, but accompanied by an undertow of hope. Exactly, she smiled softly, and I'll be here to remind you if you ever lose sight of that child's joy again. Jack nodded, feeling lighter but acutely aware of the journey still ahead. He needed to dive deeper, into the memories, the emotions, and, above all, into the fear of how others would perceive this shift. With a newfound resolve, Jack stood up. Let's explore more memories, Mom. Together, I want to feel this journey unfold. As she rose to join him, ready to guide him through the intricacies of his psyche, the laughter of the child outside resumed, echoing, beckoning. The moment felt pivotal, yet the road remained daunting. Would these reconnections lead to liberation, or would they bring more hurt to the surface? Jack was ready to find out, but one unsettling thought lingered. Balancing this dual journey into joy and professional ambition might open doors he wasn't prepared for. What would he do when faced with the realities of his colleagues' expectations? Only time would reveal whether he could transcend the weight of past choices and redefine his future, a future requiring both vulnerability and strength. The sunlight streaming through the living room window felt almost surreal, casting warm patches of light that danced along the walls, reminding Jack of the carefree days of his childhood. As he contemplated the depths of his memories with his mother, the weight of his adult responsibilities clashed with a burgeoning desire for something more profound. Could he truly reshape his life by reconnecting with the joy he once knew? Let's remember another moment, his mother suggested, her voice a soothing balm against his inner turmoil. What stands out? He closed his eyes, willing the past to rise within him. This time, fragments of a summer evening flickered through his mind, a family barbecue, the scent of grilled burgers filling the air, and the sound of laughter mingling with the sizzle of meat on the grill. It was a time when life seemed uncomplicated, and the presence of family knitted his world together in a fabric of love. I remember my dad teaching me how to throw a football, Jack said slowly, a smile breaking through the doubt that had infiltrated his thoughts. He made it feel like I could conquer anything. His mother's eyes sparkled, as if the memory was alive in her too. And how did you feel then? Invincible, he breathed, his heart fluttering with nostalgia. It was like I had his approval, the happiest moment of my childhood. As the memory enveloped him, Jack felt a tug at his very essence. The image of himself, young and full of potential, reawakened something he had almost forgotten, trust and belonging. But where had that feeling gone? It was hauntingly clear. The relentless pursuit of success had replaced those moments with a barren landscape of expectations and performance. Jack, why do you think you have pushed so many of those feelings aside? His mother's voice sliced through his reverie with gentle insistence. It's like I thought those moments didn't matter anymore, he confessed, increasingly aware of the gravity of his choices. I thought I had to sacrifice that joy to become someone, to prove my worth. And did you? She asked, a tinge of sadness lacing her question. No, he whispered, the realization bearing down on him like an anchor. I became someone, but at what cost? I've built this life, this career, but I lost the very child who found joy in the simplest things. Her silence spoke volumes. Then, as if reading his racing thoughts, she said, "What do you think it could look like if you integrated that joy back into your life, into your work?" Jack's heart raced with the possibilities. His career had long been synonymous with sacrifice, but what if joy was the missing link? What if he could use those experiences to shape his professional ethos? What if creating meaningful relationships with colleagues could lead to more passion-driven projects? It was a radical thought that sent a thrill racing through him. But tension tangled within him, fear creeping back in. What if he failed to balance this newfound approach? What would his colleagues think? "Mom, this could change everything," he said, a mix of excitement and trepidation lacing his voice. "But what if I can't bridge the gap? What if the world isn't receptive to this passion-driven approach?" "You'll never know until you try, Jack," she replied gently. "And even if you stumble, you'll learn. Don't let the fears of others dictate your path." He took a deep breath, allowing her words to settle. The prospect of change loomed large, fortified by the courage he drew from his childhood memories. His entrepreneurial spirit began to see a new vision, a fusion of personal passion with professional ambition. "I think I need to start by sharing this with my team," he declared, determination infusing his voice. "I'll allow my memories to shape my perspectives moving forward." As he spoke, a wave of relief washed over him. Jack felt as if he had stepped onto the precipice of a new reality, one that promised a hopeful blend of purpose and fulfillment. However, a lingering doubt remained. Could he withstand the potential backlash from those who idolized the status quo? "Promise me you'll stay grounded in that joy," his mother said, her eyes locked onto his with fierce intensity. "No matter what challenges arise, remember where this journey began." Their pact resonated within him like a clarion call, but under the surface, uncertainty simmered. What awaited him when he exposed this renewed perspective to his colleagues? Would he be dismissed or embraced? Each moment felt pregnant with potential, a mix of fear and anticipation churning within him. As they moved forward into this uncharted territory, Jack steeled himself for the confrontation ahead, knowing one thing for certain: the time had come for him to evaluate everything he had built and undertake the challenge of reshaping his future. The question loomed larger now. Could a man deeply entrenched in the metrics of success find acceptance in the value of joy? Only time would tell, as the stage was set for a confrontation that could redefine not just his career, but the essence of who he was. Jack Lawson sat at his conference table, the atmosphere thick with tension as top executives gathered for the imminent meeting. His heart raced, adrenaline coursing through him. He had unleashed a metamorphosis within himself, and now he was ready to reel in the changes that reframed his understanding of success. It was time to shatter the silos of achievement that had defined him for so long. "Thank you all for coming," he began, the room silencing instantly. "Today, I want to talk about something different, something that goes beyond profit margins or market shares. I want to share a vision grounded in passion, connection, and joy." He watched their eyes widen, skepticism mingling with curiosity. These were the same people who thrived on metrics and data, and he needed to convince them that this new paradigm had real value, value that would drive not just profits, but purpose. "I recently embarked on a personal journey," Jack continued, vulnerability enveloping his words. "Through reconnecting with my childhood, I've discovered the imperative of joy in our lives. It's a pursuit I want our company to embrace. Our success doesn't have to come at the cost of our humanity. Jack elaborated on the memories shared with his mother, the laughter, the lessons learned, and the realization that success could align with personal fulfillment. He spoke of children like Isabel, young souls seeking love and connection. The stark narratives he had long ignored began to unfold, eloquently juxtaposing the emptiness of material ambition against the resilience nurtured in connection. He saw the subtle shifts in their demeanor. His colleagues' postures relaxed, curiosity ignited in their eyes. It was as if they were slowly beginning to see the colors of his convictions bloom brightly against the backdrop of their customary corporate grays. Imagine a company culture where every voice is heard, where we operate not just for the bottom line, but to make a difference. We can empower our teams to find their passion in their work. Jack's voice echoed through the room, vibrant and alive. As he progressed through the presentation, Jack detailed plans for workshops focused on community outreach, engagement, and exploring how their competencies could translate into impactful change for vulnerable populations. This wasn't just about charity, it was a reorientation of purpose, redefining their legacy while redefining him. Weeks passed, and the ripple effects were palpable. The once rigid atmosphere of their office transformed into one filled with creativity and collaboration. Employees shared ideas inspired by their own stories, cultivating a newfound connection to their roles. Jack led by example, actively participating in volunteer days at shelters, sparking enthusiasm, fueling momentum. The seeds of his personal transformation were now rooting in the corporate soil. During a pivotal meeting, Jack stood before his team, excitement thrumming through him. "We're shifting from quarterly metrics to a mission-driven approach," he declared, the energy in the room surging. "We will measure success not just in numbers, but in the lives we touch." When the first corporate initiative launched, an outreach program for children in need, the undeniable enthusiasm and momentum reached a crescendo. Faces beamed, the room teemed with ideas and fervor. It was a testament to the metamorphosis he dared to undertake. His colleagues no longer viewed him merely as the CEO. They now viewed him as an impactful leader, someone who had the capacity to ignite passion and connection. Suddenly, the reality of his transformation hit him. Jack felt a profound sense of pride swell inside him. This wasn't just about diversifying contributions to corporate social responsibility. It was about living an authentic life, one that resonated with truth and purpose. Reflecting on his journey, he knew he had grown significantly. He had transformed from a man cloaked in ambition, living a life devoid of connection, to a leader who finally understood the essence of fulfillment. It was one late afternoon, after numerous successful outreach activities, when Jack stepped outside to breathe in the crisp fall air. He glanced around the buzzing city, heart swelling with contentment. The woman at the corner store greeted him with a smile, her warmth reminding him of the communities they now served. Her daughter, a beautiful girl with bright eyes, waved energetically from the sidewalk, and Jack felt a familiar tug in his chest. This felt right. It felt whole. He had conquered the chasm of insecurity and isolation built over years, proving to himself and to the world that success didn't merely reside in wealth, but in the connections and impacts made in the lives of others. He had reclaimed his sense of self, a grounded identity tied to joy, compassion, and commitment. And just then, as a gentle breeze tousled his hair, he vowed to continue spreading this mission and living authentically. No longer would he allow self-doubt or corporate pressures to dictate his choices. Jack Lawson emerged from the ruins of a past cloaked in ambition into the light of compassion, intent on making his mark not just on the bottom line, but in the hearts of those who needed it most. This was the moment of transformation. Now it's your moment. You need to subscribe now to this channel to be the first to catch more exclusive emotional stories like Jack's. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes such a difference. Comment below your reactions and theories about this inspiring conclusion. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting transformation. Don't wait even one more second to share.